Welcome to the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting tonight. I'm going to start off by reading the rules and procedures. The Planning and Zoning Commission is generally an advisory body to the City Council. The City Council will hold a public hearing and make the final decision on all matters before the Commission other than site plans and subdivision plots, unless denials or conditional approvals thereof are appealed. Please contact the City Clerk or Community Development Department staff for details on council hearings. The applicant will be given 10 minutes to present the request. Proponents and then opponents from the public are then allowed to speak in that order, with each speaker allowed a maximum of 5 minutes. The applicant is then allowed 5 minutes for a rebuttal. The hearing will then be closed and the Commission will discuss and vote on the issue. All comments are to be germane to the item under consideration and speakers are to maintain a courteous manner. Items listed on the consent portion of the agenda will not be individually discussed and will be considered for approval in accordance with the recommendation in the staff report unless an individual present or a member of the Commission requests that the item be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately under the public hearing agenda. The City of Des Moines is pleased to provide accommodations to individuals or groups with disabilities and encourages participation in city government. Assistive listening devices are available for meetings in the MSC boardroom. To better serve you when possible, please notify us at least 3 business days in advance should special accommodations be required. Planning and Zoning Commission meetings are broadcast on Mediacom cable channel 7.1 or 7.2 for customers with that service. Transportation for City of Des Moines meetings can be scheduled to and from DART Central Station at 620 Cherry Street. To reserve your route, please call DART on call scheduling at 515-283-8136. Calls for trips will be accepted up until 5 p.m. of the day prior to the meeting. Please be sure to mention in your request that you require transportation for the City of Des Moines meetings at this location. This notice is intended to comply with accessibility requirements of the Americans with Disabilities Act. I believe we have a quorum. Approval of the minutes from the last meeting.
I will move approval of the May 2nd, 2019 minutes.
Second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, raise your right hand, please. Okay. Abstention? Okay. All right. Got that? I should have said any corrections, but okay. All right. All in favor. Okay, here we go. The item passed. Okay, we're going to turn our attention right now to the consent items. We have 3 on the consent agenda. Number 1, request from Linda Casas and Richard Anderson, 827 Scott Avenue for vacation of the north-south alley between Southeast 8th Street and Southeast 9th Street from Scott Avenue to the vacated east-west alley. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to pull this item? Want to hear this item? Anyone on the commission? Okay. Number 2, request from Roosevelt Cultural District, represented by Susan Nolan, for vacation of a 4.44 foot by 3.38 foot rectangle of the 42nd Street and Chamberlain Avenue right-of-way adjoining the property of 842nd Street to allow the existing masonry pillar to carry private signage in the form of a plaque for the Roosevelt Cultural District. Anyone here wish to hear that item? Anyone on the commission? Okay. Number 3, request from Galloway Homes, represented by Jim Potsma, for review and approval of a preliminary plat for Via 335 on property located at 335 Forest Avenue to divide the existing 2.6 acre property into 24 lots for row townhomes and a common outlot. Anyone in the audience wish to hear this item? Yes, okay. So we'll pull that from the consent. Any other items that could be possibly moved to consent?
Madam Chair.
Uh-huh.
So right now, staff, we have item 4, item 5, item 7, and item 8 are in agreement with the staff recommendation.
Okay, so I'll read those right now. Number 4, request from HRC NFS, represented by Chris Sidoris, for review and approval of the development plan Fusion East within the Grade Station PUD for property located at 1170 Tuttle Street to allow development of a 3-story, 18-unit row multiple family dwelling complex. Anyone in the audience wish to hear that item? Anyone on the commission? Okay, we need to move that to consent? Or do I do one?
Just move to the consent agenda.
Oh, we'll move that.
Typically, you would vote on that. So if you want to go through all of them, and then somebody can make a motion to move all.
Oh, can I do that?
Yeah.
Thank you. Number 5, request from HRC and FS, represented again by Chris Sidoris, for review and approval of the development plan Fusion West within the Grade Station PUD for property located at 1240 Tuttle to allow development of a 3-story, 27-unit row multiple family dwelling complex. Anyone in the audience wish to hear that item? Anyone on the commission? Okay, we'll move that to consent. Number 7, request from Archway Development Group, represented by Michael Donlin, for review and approval of a site plan, bartender's handshake, under design guidelines in NPC districts for property located at 3619 Ingersoll Avenue to allow for renovation of a 936 square foot commercial tenant bay. Anyone in the audience wish to hear that item? Anyone on the commission? Okay, we'll move that to consent. Number 8, request from JAR Corps, represented by Joseph Cordaro, for review and approval of the following for the property at 1723 Grand Avenue. A is vacation of the surface and subsurface of east 4 feet of 18th Street and a north 4 feet of Grand Avenue adjoining the subject property to accommodate doors footings. And B, review and approval of a site plan under design guidelines for multiple family dwellings to allow the existing 4-story building to be renovated to add 6 additional ground floor units for a total of 45 residential household units, with the remaining portion of the 18,600 square foot ground floor and basement area to be devoted for office, retail space, storage, laundry, indoor parking space. Anyone in the audience wish to hear that item? Anyone on the commission? Okay, we'll move that to consent.
I move items 4, 5, 7, and 8 to the consent agenda.
Okay, second? Okay, Carolyn? All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? Abstentions?
I need to abstain on 4 and 5.
Okay, abstention on 4 and 5. Okay, Eric?
And then, I don't know if you want to take the consent agenda, and then there's one item that's requested continuance on the regular agenda. I guess it's up to the chair if you want to
Okay, is that
dispose
number?
of the consent agenda first, and then we can
Okay, we
talk
did-
about the item continue.
You moved items to consent and
Oh.
then motion for approval of
Okay.
consent.
Oh, we moved items to consent, that's true. Okay, we'll vote on the consent items. Okay? Motion?
So moved.
Second?
Got it.
Okay, all in favor? Raise your right hand. Okay. Any opposed? Okay, and
I need to abstain again
he's
on
going
4
to
and 5.
abstain 4 and 5. Okay. Right, got it. Okay, sorry, Eric.
So items 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, and 8 have been voted in accordance with staff recommendation and won't be taken up further this evening. Madam Chair, item 9 has requested a continuance to the June 6th meeting. In order to, they're doing some revision to the project, and they've also submitted a request related to the project for some subsurface vacation rights, vacation of subsurface rights. So they would like to be on the June 6th agenda.
Okay.
I move to continue item 9 to the June 6th agenda.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Raise your right hand. Okay, opposed? Abstentions? Okay, that will be continued.
So anybody, this won't be
So if you're
renoted?
here for number 9, that will be continued.
Yes, and there won't be any renotice, so if you were here this evening for that item, it'll be taken up on June 6th.
Can you show it to me?
Okay,
Item 3.
item 3. So we're ready for the public hearing, and we will start with item 3. Request from Galway Homes, represented by Jim Potsma, to review and approve of the preliminary plat for Via 335 on property located at 335 Forest Avenue to divide the existing 2.6 acre property into 24 lots for row townhomes and a common outlet. Will the applicant come forward? Is the applicant here? Oh, sorry.
So
Sorry, Eric.
I'll give a brief presentation of the staff report. If I can get Tyler to zoom out a little bit.
Okay, he's going to give a brief, yeah. Oh,
I'll go over it quickly and then.
Which one?
Number 3. So this is a subdivision plat for 24 parcels that would be for townhome units so basically we're talking about lot lines in between units of a row house with the surrounding area, commonly held as outlots that would contain detention, landscaping, and things that would be commonly maintained. So this would allow for separate ownerships of each of the townhome units in accordance with the PUD that was already approved by the City Council in November of 2016, which allowed for the row houses. They were 2 stories above underground parking, basically. So staff is recommending in favor of this, subject to the compliance with some of the administrative review comments. And then one of the things we wanted to make sure was included was compliance with tree mitigation, because this property does have tree cover that will be removed as part of the development of the site. So
Eric, could you rotate the site plan so north of the top?
so this is north. I'm sorry. Probably got Tyler to zoom out a little bit more. Most of the area to the north is open space. There's some grading that's going to happen at this end to flatten out the site to the southwest. This is an aerial of the property.
So Eric, just to confirm, council already approved the planned unit development zoning for this property?
Correct.
That allowed this density and allowed this housing type, and there's already architecture approved for these units. This is just the platting of the lots for the units, correct?
Correct. And then the development plan will get administratively reviewed.
Is the plating in general conformance with what was shown earlier?
It is, yes. So they need to, there's some things that are just, I would say, typical administrative items that we would have that get corrected in accordance with the.
Eric, is there some way that you can view out and give us a sense where the historic district is north on Arlington?
I don't know if I have anything that would allow me to zoom out on that, but the historic district would be north of, so if you can see the park here, this is Bates Park. And at the north end of that is College Avenue. So
3 or 4
another couple blocks north of that is where the Riverbend Historic District would, and then it would be another 3 blocks to the west on 6th Avenue.
So this is Bates Park that we can see here.
Yeah, Bates Park is directly adjoining to the north, basically.
okay. Okay, thanks, Eric. So the applicant? Is the applicant here? Okay, please state your name and your address and then you'll want to sign in the sheet.
My name is Jim Postma, and I live at 1247 41st Street, Des Moines. Yeah, I started this about 3 years ago, and it's within a couple blocks of Mercy Hospital, and Mercy Hospital removed about 200 apartments they had there. They're going to be owner occupied, and I thought it would be a great improvement to the neighborhood. I didn't realize anybody had any objection to it until a couple minutes ago. So this is, I mean, like Eric said, I think this has all been approved. This is just the platting of it into lots here, so.
Okay, any questions of the applicant? Okay. Is there anyone else? Thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor of the applicant? Anyone who wants to express an opinion? Okay. Go ahead, come forward, say your name, address, sign in.
When you're done speaking, if you could sign in the sheet. Record of your name, address.
So my name is Risha Weber. I reside at 2909 Deepwoods Court. My property is sitting on the east end of this planned development, which would be 219 Forest Avenue. I am the property owner or manager at this point of that property. Not really sure what I can say here, so I'll just get started. I appreciate Steve's comment. I am all for helping that area develop. It's obviously going to help my property. What I'm concerned about is the things that have happened in developing to get the property ready for Steve. When the trees were excavated, which was a very large tree excavation, my property was damaged during that time. A tree fell on my gutter and caused damage. The excavating company gave me $100, tapped it, said it's good. But since then, I've been getting puddling in the front yard, really bad puddling that I'm concerned about. They also put up a commercial fence to protect the property. I have a residential small fence, and they've hooked the fences up. So now my fence is damaged. I removed it myself, and someone came back and put it up. So I have pictures. My landscaping in the backyard, as they removed the trees and they came with their cranes, they came into my property and damaged the landscape back there as well. I have pictures. It's very difficult for me to mow on the west side of the house because there's no real division of property, because now that the trees are gone, it's just kind of like open field. So this is kind of a request for me. I don't know how we can establish a boundary that makes sense, because when you look at your city plans or the plot plans, they kind of go zigzag. Before this happens, I would really like for us to establish some kind of straight line between my property and the new property. I'm really concerned with flooding because it's a large hill, and it's already been happening since the trees have been removed. And then just generally people coming in and out of my yard because it's just such an open area, and it looks like, I don't know, you can just go play in both yards, I don't know. So, and then the last thing I wrote down was just, I constantly have to call the city to have him mow the area because the grass gets extremely long and it's hard to see. Going into from the driveway, what would be the easement, I guess you want to call it. And probably more field mice than there needs to be because it just doesn't get mowed often enough. So it's just, yeah. I don't know what else to say,
Well,
but those are my
thank you.
objections.
Questions from the commission?
I have a question, please.
Yes.
What I'm hearing from you is a concern about the surroundings rather than the actual use of the land itself as row houses. Is that correct?
That absolutely would be correct. Yeah, I appreciate what he's planning on doing. I just don't want to be. I don't want to, be affected negatively as far as my property management, so that he can make a perfect, condo. So,
Okay, other questions?
I have a question of staff. When the applicant gets to the point of bringing the final plan forward, is a fence required, abutting single-family residential, or what might this lady expect to see when the property is complete?
Generally, unless there was parking areas, that there wouldn't have been a screening between residential and residential. So there's definitely landscaping that was shown on the ends of those drives. I don't have a copy of I should have included a copy of the conceptual plan for reference, but it's not in the file. So it's based on what the PUD is. The fencing she's probably referring to is what we require under the grading permit, which is supposed to define the grading limits of the property, so that they don't grade over tree roots and things like that. I don't know about the operational aspect of them, attaching it to her fencing, because I don't know. That's kind of a private matter, but I'm not sure that's a good practice. Should probably be set up to stand on its own.
I have a question for staff while you're up here. She talked about flooding and removal of trees.
Get closer.
Oh, she talked about flooding and the removal of trees. Is there a plan to mitigate any of that? Or
Yeah, so that was one of the conditions that staff was recommending, that they comply with the mitigation requirements, so when they come back in with their development plan, they will need to demonstrate that they've replaced the trees removed with adequate number of plantings within their property. So there is some opportunity, I guess, for the developer to work with the property owners to determine exactly where some of that is. There was a conceptual plan that determined conceptual landscaping, but the development plan will define where they actually plant, and they will have to show a schedule of plantings that would make sure that they meet the mitigation amounts of plantings.
And Eric, stormwater?
In the stormwater, so on this plan, that they're showing the stormwater as underground chambers, so it may be hard to see around this area. I don't know if the engineer's here tonight, but there's stormwater chambers around here. And there isn't really storm sewer in the area, so they have to detain and then release in a fashion which won't be erosive, given the slopes and things. So that they'll have to have a way of releasing that, so that the water that's released back onto the property, the subject property, doesn't leave the site and go anywhere in a manner which would damage the other property. So that'll be part of the development plan review by our engineering staff.
Okay. Any other questions of Eric or any other questions? Okay, thank you. Make sure you sign in also, please. Anyone else want to speak in opposition of the proposal? Okay, please state your name and address, please, and then make sure you sign in when you're done. Oh, good, thank you. Okay, thanks.
My name is Stephen Clark. I have property at 1406 Second Place, directly adjacent to this property on the east side. Also own property at 1407. I've lived in the area for better than 30 years. I've seen what they did to that hillside as far as tree removal, and in this projected, it was a big mistake to do that at the beginning. Not only has there been erosion, but there's been new flow of terrain. What was going one direction without the trees has caused the entire hillside literally to gentle its way down without those trees. Before, it was cut in and out. The trees protected it, the roots kept it in place. They're talking about putting in a reserve area for flooding as far as the drainage, and they're fooling themselves if they can put in anything bigger or anything other than an enormous underground tanks to hold us because we get an excessive amount of water. Forest gets flooded and washes down to 2nd Avenue like a river. Not only that, but it washes on to Second Place. Second Place, what would be Orchard down between Second Place and 2nd Avenue, has been washed out every other year that they've tried to keep something there. And the only reason they keep anything there right now is because Sam Betty's wanted it there. And Sam Betty's is no longer there, so, or won't be. I worry about the erosion. I worry about the density. As far as population density, apparently I'm way too late on the zoning part. I was brought up to speed by somebody else that this isn't high density. It is for our neighborhood. This is high density. When you have row houses with that small of an area, with that park, for the entire neighborhood, this is high density. I know it's not an apartment building, but it's still high density. It shouldn't have been that much. You're gonna have too much concrete there. You're not gonna be able to accommodate that much water, and it's gonna flow down that. And wherever those downspouts come off of those properties, it's gonna wash down that hill. I know they've got new drainage coming in through the, what would be 4th Street, I believe, towards the north. They've got the whole area ripped up and they're pulling up that. When I first moved in, my whole street on 2nd Place was ripped up and removed so that new piping for downtown fresh water could be put in. But no, I may be late, but I'm still objecting to it.
Okay. All right.
This density is too much for our neighborhood, and he's talking about either rental or sale of properties as far as townhomes and the projected value of $240,000 per unit. In my neighborhood, even a new house, habitats don't go for more than 100, 125, and that's a good new house, well built on a good lot, family meant. These single family, high density, nowhere to play, nowhere to protect you. Yeah. Traffic flow, and you're talking another 50 cars out on Orchard.
Okay, another minute. Okay?
Another 50 cars possibly up to, because 24 units. And everybody's got 2 cars, you know, man, whatever, if not 3. I've got 3.
Okay.
In that area for Orchard and what would be Forest, it doesn't show an outlet onto Forest. So you're talking Orchard and 4th. So you're talking more density, you're talking more cars parked on the streets, more traffic issues, and well, wherever there's density, there's people hiding in the shadows.
Okay. Well, thank you. Questions for Mr. Clark? Question?
I don't have a question. I do have a question. Have you seen the latest engineering plan for the development?
I did. That just shows that it will erode that much better.
But
that hillside to that property line, they're talking pushing those houses out. That puts the last row of the houses on is on what would be the east side of all those lots. Unit lot 13, lot 12, lot 5, lot 4 is on that hillside. Whatever's coming off there will continue down that grade even faster and will wash out what's on down there on down to the street. The subsoil in this area is potty clay, which is not really stable. It holds water, expands, it shrinks. That plateau up there literally has a underground spring to it that comes off of everything from 13th Street, from say University to Hickman, washing down into that because it's all old coal mines. And there's a natural spring on 2 of the properties, Habitat properties, what would be the west side. Can't see your overhead. Where's your overhead?
Well, this is
Oh, okay.
the area, so if I put it here, you'll be able to see what you're pointing.
Okay. Right in here, this is the property of the lady before me that she manages. That's and the erosion she was talking about is right here. That has gotten worse. I know that because I'm always up on this hillside. Thought about buying it at one time because I own the property here, but it was a little too much. Also, their outcrop of this is side by side with that lady's property here, who doesn't speak English and probably had no idea that this was going on because she's lived there 4 years now. And she's got kids and everything else, so you're taking away what would be her driveway to the backside of her property for in and out, and basically giving somebody else the right of way to it or the restriction to it, which was a mistake for the city to do to begin with when they give away what would be a street to a non-adjacent property. You want to give alleys away to the ones that are side by side here and here? That's fine. I understand that. It's less zoning and the phone line runs through there. But this one wasn't automatically assumed to be hers without question, just basically because it's there. That was a mistake.
Okay,
Yeah, thanks a lot for, I just wanted to make
So-
sure that you'd actually seen a copy of the
Yes.
plan. Thank you.
More erosion, more water.
May I?
There's no way they can accommodate it.
So I also live in that neighborhood. I've lived there for 20 years, and I was very excited about a new development. And I'm going to trust my partners here that know best and the staff to mitigate the erosions in the water and things like that. And I understand that. I am excited to see that development. But I know we have to. Yeah.
It's being developed?
Pardon?
But at the
Hey, you need to, sir, you need to speak into the,
I'm sorry.
Usually I'm so used to my voice carrying, I don't need a microphone. But yes, I'm very glad that I heard that somebody was developing it because it's a famous dump point. The previous property, as far as the 12 or 14 units that was there, that was basically a drug den or otherwise. I'm glad that they got tore down and somebody took interest in it. It was definitely a nuisance property that nobody could do anything about.
Yeah,
But
I hope that
this
they're
high
just going to be good
density-
neighbors.
This high density is asking for future problems of that neighborhood.
okay.
Our neighborhood does not
Mr. Clark?
need high density.
Yeah, I think we understand that. So, any other questions or comments?
Nope, thank
Any
you.
other questions? No? Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who wants to speak in opposition of the applicant? State your name and address and make sure you sign in.
Sorry, I'm not very good at public speaking. My name's Jana DeVore. I live at the property of 1427 4th Street, and I'm sorry, Jana Lynn, I just got married. So we live at the property right here. Been there 17 years. Again, also, I appreciate the attempt of beautifying the neighborhood and making it better. We mainly came to get some answers. I really haven't done any of my research, so I apologize for that. I'm kind of late to the show. Wanting to know how the traffic flow will go, again, kind of building on what he said. Living on that corner there, that orchard is really just an alley. It's not a street. And with all the traffic in the neighborhood because of the park and everything, I also am concerned of a lot of traffic going up and down that alleyway. People come flying through there already the way it is. Kind of a dangerous neighborhood and area for kids play out in the streets because there's not appropriate play areas for them already. And again, adding 24 units of more kids and stuff in the neighborhood is concerning that it may not be safe. I also have going on her complaints about the wildlife and trees. Have a lot of the last 5 to 10 years battling poison ivy and weeds coming up over that area, just nonstop trying to battle that. So I'm hoping that will be addressed with the building of it and maintenance of that. It's a big issue, and it's also been connected to my fence coming from that way, with no access to getting back in there if my dogs go chase animals that go back there. But yeah, our main concern again was the traffic flow. If I didn't get a chance to see if the traffic's supposed to be coming in from the north, the south, east, whatever. But parking's a nightmare in that area, period. Also what it'll do to our property values, taxes, things like that. I'd just like some answers, not necessarily opposing it.
Okay, thank you. Questions? Okay, thank you. Anyone else want to speak in opposition of the applicant? Yes. Oh. State your name and address, please.
All right, here?
Yeah.
Well, my name is Kim Thomas, and I am kind of surprised. I this is the packet that I got September of 14th of 2016 for the first meeting about this property and I got this big plat sheet and all that kind of stuff with it too. Anyway, I came for that meeting and was told that it had been postponed, and then I would be made aware of a new time. I had heard nothing about this until just the letter that I just got for coming to the meeting tonight. So I've kept this. I have the original, all that kind of stuff. And at the time that I came to that meeting, I did at least leave a sheet with my name and everything on it. And my opposition was, quote, for the increased traffic to the facility, Orchard Avenue, which is a single-lane street, cannot handle it. Basically, 24 units, 50-plus people, unless they were going to do something with the street, Orchard, and that, it's, I didn't see this plan. I have not seen this at all. So here I am, come to the meeting, because I was opposed to it because of this. I sure like to see some development. I should explain what I have.
What's your address again, sir?
Yeah, my address is of the properties. I'm a landlord. I've had four rental properties, sold one, 1435, 37, and 39 4th Street. So they share the alley of Orchard. They're the three houses. I mean, this doesn't, oh, it does. Okay, good. I have these three houses right here. 1, 2, and 3. For the 40 years I've had the houses, because parking is such a problem, I've designed in the back of my properties parking, 2-stall parking for my tenants that I've had. And it's because you can't park anyplace. So that's my big opposition for having this at all. This Orchard Avenue is like they've just stated, it's just a one-lane, basically, street. And I don't know where all the extra, high density is exactly what I'm afraid of with having that. And I'm not prepared, to go through other than I was opposed. I stated that. This is the first time I've heard of anything. I saved all this. I mean, those properties are something that I've had for 40 years, you guys, and I'm very surprised that I don't know that it was even passed. I think I've talked to you once on the phone. I gave you my name. I even have our conversation and what we talked about. It was your Jim, right? Yeah. Yes, you and I did talk on the phone. We never met or anything like that, too.
Okay, sir.
All right. Yes, I'm sorry. Not good at public speaking either, but.
Okay, thank you. Did you want to say anything else, or?
Well, you've got my point that we don't know anything about that this had even been approved or anything like that. I was never notified for that. And now here it is that we have this. So
okay.
Where do you get a copy of this?
You can leave your information with me and
I will. You're the person then to
okay. Do we have questions? Questions of Mr. Thomas?
I have a question for this is really for the applicant or staff, just to address this parking issue. I am just making an assumption that the townhomes come with a garage, a 2-car garage. Can you just clarify or confirm?
Are we done?
Yeah. Unless they have questions of you. Is there
no. Any questions? Yeah.
Yeah,
please.
And if you put your email there, I'll email you a scan of that. Yes, so this was approved with the PUD conceptual plan. So each of these would have a double garage underneath with 2 stories above. There would be a through private drive that would go between Orchard and Forest. So that isn't really showing up because all you're seeing here is the lot lines. And so you're not, the other thing is that there's private access to the backs of these units with center courts. So the units face each other on a center court. You don't see that on a plat document, but.
So Eric, just to confirm, there's a 2-car garage for each unit. It actually has a parking drive out in front of the unit to access the garage. And then if I recall this PUD, there was if you call it on-street parking, it's the private drive in the development had parking lining the private drive that would look like a public street. It would have landscaping along it, street trees, and it has a sidewalk that runs the full north-south length of the property. So it's a private drive within the development, but it looks like a public street and functions like a public street that has parking along it for guests. And then each unit itself has a two-space availability.
Okay.
And just for the commissioner's awareness, so when we send out notices on plats and site plans, that instructs individuals with questions to come and view the plan or call in, and we can send it to them by email. Because it's not an easy thing to mail in the notification. So we didn't get any inquiries until this evening on that.
So Eric, do you see any issues with traffic? Because I know Orchard and I know.
Traffic is required to
I'm
be
certain you've done
reviewed
the
at the
study.
PUD stage, so that would have been,
Right.
the traffic analysis would have been made at the time of the planned unit development review.
Right.
And this was approved satisfying the any traffic requirements. 24 dwelling units, while it will change what's happening there now, doesn't really drive any concerns with the capacity of the surrounding street network. Doesn't do anything that would promote congestion really with that number of units. Again, they're going to notice some change to what's there now, but and the fact that they have the outlet to Forest, I would imagine most trips will want to go to Forest and not choose to go onto Orchard because it's it's a semi-improved street. So
It is a single lane street. So okay.
that's not to say nobody will,
Right.
but it'll have two outlets.
But traffic was comfortable with.
Yeah, so traffic
study.
and transportation's, made comments at that time. I think some of this layout was revised based on the need to make sure we have a through connection as well, so.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Does the applicant want to,
So he has
do you want to respond to anything that you've heard?
Like I said, I didn't know there was any objections to this. I know we had, way back when, we had a neighborhood meeting before essentially anything was done. And I thought the last gentleman's wife was at it. I'm not sure, but I remember her talking about some houses that were for rental on the 4th Street there. But, and I agree with Eric. I think 90% of the traffic is going to go on Forest. Orchard essentially doesn't go anyplace. So, but anyway, I just ask you to approve the plating. Like the rest of this stuff has been approved a long time ago already. So,
Okay.
and if anybody has any problems in the neighborhood, I'll be glad to give you my name and number. You can call me anytime, so no problem. So,
Okay. Thank you.
Would you do that for, I'm thinking for the woman that had come here and...
Pardon me?
I say, would you do that specifically for the woman who came here?
Yeah.
And had a question about the fencing and so forth?
Yeah, I'll take a look at it. Quite frankly, I think between your property and my property, there's a 3-foot piece of property that's owned by somebody, I don't know who, but I think it has some lady's name on it. But if you don't want that attached to your fence, I'll make sure it gets detached from it. So, and they never fix your gutter either. Can I talk to her later?
Yeah, I would say,
Side-
yeah.
sidebar.
Okay, thank you.
Sidebar.
Thank you very much. Anyone else in opposition? Well, okay, we just said that. All right, so I'm going to close the public hearing.
I'll move staff.
Any, okay? Any second?
Sure.
Or discussion?
No.
Okay. All in favor of staff, raise your hand. Opposed? Abstain? Okay, thank you.
Item is approved.
And the item's approved. Now we're going to item 6. I'll read it. Eric, you want to put it up there? Okay. Item 6, 400 Southeast 6th Street, represented by Jake Christensen for review and approval of a site plan amendment, Truman's KC Pizza Tavern, under design guidelines in C3B districts for property located at 400 and 410 Southeast 6th Street to allow for 1,344 square foot patio to the south of the building at 400 Southeast 6th Street and off-street parking. Okay, Eric?
Yes, so quickly, since the last time the commission saw this and continued the item, it included the entire block area of the site. It's now been reduced to just the eastern portion, which is the C3B portion, and they are treating it as 2 separate site plans now. So what's in front of you is the eastern part of the block, which includes the parking that you see here and the patio area. They are requesting they did provide a design that shows them complying with the elements of our downtown overlay and streetscapes. However, they do indicate that they want a deferral of that improvement for the time being. They didn't give a definite amount of time for that deferral. In addition, they are also asking that they not be required to underground their service line for their building as part of this. So staff, both of those are contrary to what staff is recommending in the staff recommendation. Other than that, we would just say compliance with other administrative review. I don't know if there's, I don't want to, I'm trying to be a little more brief if I can, but if there's questions about something you're not sure about, definitely ask. So staff is recommending approval of this, but we're not wanting to, we want the improvements for the sidewalks and the service lines undergrounded with the immediate project, so.
Okay. Questions of Eric right now? Well, is the applicant here? Okay. Please state your name and address and then sign in when you're done, please.
Angie Fonku, Christensen Development, 215 East 3rd, Suite 300, Des Moines. Try to get this on here for you guys. So just a little bit of history on why we split the plats. We got ourselves into a really big detention cost when we tried to increase the parking by putting the 2 lots together. So doing it this way allows us to still get parking for our tenant, but not do the detention until we actually make this an apartment building, which is probably 10 years down the road. So what we're looking at, our main concern is the undergrounding of utilities. You guys saw me like a month ago about the same issue. So you will see running down Raccoon, all of the utility poles are actually on the opposite side of the street. We just have one coming into our Truman's space. And so the cost to underground is about $10,000 to $12,000 depending, and it would only remove that length across Raccoon. So it doesn't do much for sight lines or views or anything like that. There are no other undergrounded utilities along Raccoon. Our other concern with Raccoon is depending on who you talk to in the city and what plan you look at, we're still unsure if Raccoon's a through street at the end of the day or if it's closed. So I don't want to put in Class A sidewalks for something that isn't going to be a street, which that I believe depends on A.J. Allen and what plans follow, what plans come through and what don't. So I'm not opposed to doing the landscaping along Southeast 6th because you actually have that with PDM, and Nelson's project will have that in TWG. So that makes sense to me. It's the Raccoon piece that does not make sense to us. Any questions?
Questions?
Angie, I'm not
Yes.
following your thinking regarding whether or not Raccoon will continue to go through. Is there discussion about vacation or?
In the market district plan, in one of the plans, yes. Depends on which department in the city I'm talking to. So I don't think that's been sorted through yet, unless it has in the
I think on the
last couple
draft,
months.
they did decide to keep Raccoon because there's going to be stormwater
Okay.
facilities running down that street still. So at least that's my understanding of the draft. That plan has not been, the final draft of it hasn't been prepared, and it still needs to come to the Planning Commission for review. But my understanding is at least that Raccoon Street's going to remain in that plan as a public right-of-way.
Is that supposed to come through the end of this year sometime?
Yeah.
The market plan?
Yeah,
So
I
we
just reviewed, gave comments to them on it from our perspective on the final draft, and I know they're piecing together the final document with the consultant to bring it forward.
Because when we were looking at a piece on Southeast 5th, there was discussion about Raccoon ending at Southeast 5th and not continuing through. So that's some of our, we don't want to put in utilities if, not necessarily just utilities, but the sidewalk and all the improvements. If number one, it's going to be ripped out to fix Raccoon, or number two, if Raccoon's going away. So.
Other questions? Okay.
One more thing. You guys had a time limit on there that we hadn't discussed, so.
Yeah, so there was some talk about 2 years, but then that went away from what was submitted, so.
Yeah, our new lease is 5 years with Truman's, and quite honestly, without the workforce housing tax credit right now, we can't afford to do apartments. So it'll probably be at least that 5 years before we're able to totally transform that corner, so.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else to speak in favor of the applicant? Anyone who wants to speak in opposition of this proposal? Okay, I'll close the public hearing. Discussion?
I'd like to make a motion, we'll just see where it goes. I move staff with the exception that the overhead line not be buried and that the sidewalk be installed within 1 year of the final market plan approval. Mike, I'm thinking that if and when that plan is approved, we'll know. And then give them a year, that's borrowing weather, is it approved in the winter or whatever, to install the sidewalk.
So it was waiver of the undergrounding,
Yes.
but sidewalk within 1 year after approval of the plan if the right-of-way's still there.
Yes.
With the inclusion of the Southeast 6th Street sidewalk now,
I think did you offer that up?
Yeah, I'm fine with that, yeah.
Yeah. Angie said they would do that.
okay.
Okay. Any discussion on that? Is there a second?
Sure.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Raise your right hand.
Good compromise.
Okay. Opposed? Abstention? Okay. Motion. Come back.
Like your utilities at the same time. So again, I'm not putting in a sidewalk just to rip it out. So I can work with planning and the departments, but we agreed to the year, but let's coordinate the work on Raccoon. Okay.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. The motion passed.
They could always come back if that conflict became a concern.
Okay. Item 10. Eric, you want to put it back on?
Yeah, hold on a second.
Okay, number 10 is request from Drake University, represented by Vanessa Macro, for review and approval of a site plan, the Harkin Institute, under design guidelines in NPC districts on property located at 2800 University Avenue to allow development of a 2-story, 16,768 square foot building for the Harkin Institute.
So we're excited about this project. So I know there's some concerns raised in the staff report, but we're definitely excited about what Drake's doing here for the housing the Harkin Institute on their campus. And this entire block essentially was part of the south side of University that got rezoned to NPC. So back back when that occurred, the Drake neighborhood, along with Drake University, wanted to see walkable development occurring around the campus. So NPC was the zoning of choice at that time. That's the zoning in our ordinance that currently does encourage that. It brings the buildings to the street. So if you look at the design guidelines, I think at this point right now, the main, I'm going to show you their plan first, I guess, before getting into that. And I'll let them elaborate maybe even more on it. Their design team is here, so I don't want to take away from them describing their plan. But so they do have the building fronted to University, which is appropriate under NPC. They have a plaza area to the east of it towards 28th Street. And then they have a parking area that goes along with this that's also west of St. Catherine's, so which is already there. So they're integrating that into existing development on the campus already. The main entrance is here at the southeast corner and empties out onto this area plaza. There's also a route to get them to University. When you look at the NPC design guidelines, staff's biggest concern, I think, is generally we want front entrances to be on the prominent street and emptying out onto that frontage. That is the transit corridor. So we want to make sure that transit patrons are able to get to the entrance of this building within a reasonable amount of distance. And so that was our concern. So we were recommending to have a primary entrance onto University or demonstrate that they're able to meet that guideline of having good access to the street from the entrance of the building. So that will be their task tonight in front of the commission. Right now the transit stop is here at this corner. They've actually gotten a modification that traffic is wanting this bump out here to slide to the corner to shade this. This would no longer be a right turn lane, which it is now. So right now there's a right turn that goes south onto 28th Street. They want to shade that with a bump out so that for a safer movement of traffic on University and better movement of traffic, which I don't think anybody is arguing at this point. So they're proposing to meet that requirement. But the spacing of the DART stops would push the transit stop to mid-block, which actually takes it away from that southeast corner. So that's staff's primary concern at this point. And so when you look at the staff recommendation, we are recommending that they provide an entrance onto University, which I know there's some challenges with the way they've designed their building internally, so they'll probably present that.
Eric, could you clarify, there is a door on the east side of, the west side of the building, but that's a employee-only entrance, is that correct?
Right. There's a door, service door for staff, basically, to access on the west side of the building. That has an access point to get them to the parking area. We've recommended that be connected to University as well. I don't think they're arguing against that at this point. I don't think that's going to be a deal breaker for them, but I'll let them speak to that. But they don't, because of security needs, they're indicating that the main public entrance will be in this plaza. So,
okay.
I'll let them present their design. I have the elevations and everything if you have questions, but I'm hoping for them to give you a better picture of their design. So,
okay, thank you.
One question for Eric. Is the project that Mike Nelson's working on, does it come all the way to 28th?
No. So
where does it stop?
Can you see the 27? Oh yeah. I see what you're saying. There's a full block there.
Okay.
In between, yeah.
Okay.
So, but because of the way the Nelson Hotel project went, that actually shifted where the DART stops were they're trying to reduce the number of DART stops to keep the buses moving quicker. So DART's looked at this and determined kind of at this point, given the project that's also part of the city's upgrade to University with sewers and so forth, The stops are getting redistributed along there, and that's already somewhat predetermined now based on that project, so.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Eric. Will the applicant come forward, please? State your name, address, sign in.
Good evening. My name is Joseph Jones. I'm the Executive Director of the Harkin Institute, which is currently located at 2429 University Avenue, a part of Drake's campus, which of course is 2507 University Avenue. Thank you all for your time this evening for talking about our project. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you, and especially appreciate your service on planning and zoning. Not the same level of service, but I did 5 years of my own planning and zoning in my own small town before I ran for council. But tonight, I want to talk to you about the Harkin Institute for Public Policy and Citizen Engagement that was established at Drake in 2013 with a mission to inform citizens, inspire creative cooperation, and catalyze change on issues of social justice, fairness, and opportunity. And as our name suggests, we have two primary goals. The first is to produce high-quality, nonpartisan public policy research to help policymakers make educated decisions. And the second is to engage the public in conversations that foster active and informed civic participation. So it's worth noting that we have several programs specifically for Drake and Drake University students. A large number of those participating in our public programming are members of the Des Moines community at large. In fact, we brought nearly 11,000 people to campus since we came to Drake. And although we work around the globe, we're proud to be located in Des Moines, and we're proud of the quality programming we're able to provide to our neighbors and our community members. Much of our research and programming is concentrated in 4 public policy areas to which Senator Harkin dedicated his career: wellness and nutrition, labor and employment, retirement security, and of course, people with disabilities. And as you all know, fighting for the rights of individuals with disabilities was a hallmark of Senator Harkin's career, and it's an area we're proud to continue to work on at the Institute. In particular, the Institute has been focused on how we can help promote competitive integrated employment for people with disabilities around the world. We partnered around the world with those who are working to tackle this challenge, and Senator Harkin has set an ambitious goal that we will double the labor force participation rate among people with disabilities by 2027. It's not an easy task to get there. We need to completely rethink our approach to our workforce, and we need to be bold in our commitment to creating spaces that are accessible to everyone. So the ADA was signed 29 years ago, but when it comes to building design, too many people are still in the mindset of providing the bare minimum to comply with the law, when we should be thinking of how we can create the most inclusive and accessible spaces possible. So at the Harkin Institute, we're constantly reevaluating how we do things, questioning ourselves, and asking how we can make things more accessible, whether that's through our communications materials, our events, or our public spaces. And that's why we challenged our architect to create a space that serves as not just a model of inclusive design, but also a challenge to others to rethink their own practices and how they can raise the bar when it comes to inclusion and equity. Lastly, I want to highlight briefly one of the deliberate processes we undertook while designing this space. There's a phrase in the disability community that's regularly heard that is, "nothing about us without us." And I cannot presume to know the most important factors of an accessible space for someone who is deaf, or someone who is blind, or someone who is user of a wheelchair. But at the Institute, we have a disability policy committee made up of 15 experts in different areas of disability, and most of whom have disabilities themselves. Now, ordinarily, this group's responsibility is to help us with our policy research, help us set our agenda, but we knew how important it was to get this building right. So we, along with Kevin, our architect, met with this group on multiple occasions to discuss with them directly what was most important to them when it comes to making the built environment not only accessible, but truly inclusive. So you'll see their feedback reflected in the building proposal you have before you in all sorts of ways. So at the Harkin Institute, we have a tremendous legacy to live up to. Equitable access is immensely important to us. It's not enough for us to meet the minimum standards of accessibility. Access and universal design are at the heart of this building, as well as the Institute's mission and identity. A place known for its work on behalf of persons with disabilities can do no less. We need to create a space that is truly inclusive for all individuals. A building that will draw national attention as an iconic example of universal design can serve as a model for other organizations of how to create a workspace and a space for public gatherings that's welcoming for everyone. I'm going to let Kevin tell you about the design elements, and then we'll both take your questions.
Thank you, Joseph. Kevin Nordmeyer, BNIM 317 6th Avenue in Des Moines. Very briefly, because I know we're running short on time, I want to show you a few pictures. Eric already showed you the property. The red outline there is the property. A few images from Google Earth. I should just point out that if 0 is the elevation here, this parking is about 5 feet higher in grade than the street at this point. This driveway ascends up 5 feet. There's parking in this zone right now that provides some handicap parking for the church. Currently, technically doesn't comply with the side slopes because it was sort of retrofitted to make that work at the time. But all of this area is sort of a plateau, about 5 to 6 feet higher than University and 28th Street. Something just to note. I should mention too that I do agree, Drake does agree with Eric in that the only issue we have with the staff recommendations is this notion of an entrance on University. We cannot accommodate that, and I'll demonstrate why here in a second. We do also meet 4 of the 5 criteria for you folks to grant exceptions to the design guidelines. We have an irregular shaped site. It's 1.88 acres. We have topography challenges and existing buildings that we're all trying to maintain. So within the ordinance, we meet 4 of 5 of the things that require or that allow you to grant exceptions. So again, here's the corner at 28th and University looking southwest. This is the church. We're placing the building in this zone right here. And so you'll see here when we drive in, we're ascending grade. So one of the issues with the ordinance as it stands right now is that by requiring, and for good reason, by requiring an entrance on the north side at University, the ordinance actually suggests parking on the rear side. The issue with everything that Joseph just said with accessibility is that you're parking on the back side of the building with an entrance on the north side of the building. And so for this particular building, not only is there a distance issue just for any site related to that, there's an issue with this particular site because there's a 5-foot change in grade. So you'll see in our design solution how we tried to manage that, which requires us to move the entrance off of University is the main thing. So for me, I have multiple sclerosis. And for me, I have to scope out ahead of time. If I'm going to meet somebody, I have to scope out, a couple of days in advance. Where am I going to meet them? Where am I going to park? How far do I have to walk to get from parking to a front door? So here's another issue or another site image looking east, and you can see the grade change here. So the site plan that Eric presented, and here's just a little rendered version of that. Yes, so Drake University here. Here's the Harkin Institute building, the church. And so we are moving the drive and managing redoing all of the grades in this zone to flatten out the slope a little bit. And you'll see here, rather than place the building at the corner, which is what the ordinance would like us to do, and have an entrance here and parking here, there's not a really good way for a person like me that can still walk, thankfully, to get to the front door. Even though the front door is accessible to University and for transit folks, walking on the sidewalk, those of us with disabilities will have a challenge getting to that front door. So what we did is the first thing we did is we slid the building west. By sliding the building west, we've created this public plaza space that absolutely has a wonderful presence, and you'll see here in a second, to University, and it's creating that front door experience for us off of University Avenue. And the key thing here, though, is that, and this was initial concepts we had from the beginning, the parking here is handicap parking right by the front door. Rather than parking anywhere in this zone and having to walk around the building to a front door over here, distance does matter. And so that's one thing ordinances and city plans don't account for appropriately, is the distance someone has to walk from a parking stall to a front door. So we are trying to manage that very well right here. All of the visitors for this building will park back here, staff will park back here, and over in this parking over here. So a lot of people for this building will be coming from this direction, and that's why we felt the best and most appropriate and gracious accessible entry is at that southeast corner. The other thing to note here is that there's a visual access from Drake University. There's also visual access from the building from University Avenue. And by creating this public plaza here, it absolutely accentuates and connects the front door to University without having a door literally on the front facade of the building to University. The floor plan as it relates, when you enter the building here through sliding doors, there's a ramp, there's one stair, and then there's this ramp that can take you up on this journey to the upper floor. And so the reason I'm showing you that is that this will probably be one of the only buildings in the country that has this feature. And it presents itself again on the north side of the building here. And this is a gallery space celebrating the Institute, Tom Harkin's legacy, and so forth in that zone. All of this is glass, presenting itself to University. So here is a picture of that. I want to zoom out just a bit. So this is standing on University looking back at the building, and staff didn't really have this picture when they made some of their comments. They might have made different comments maybe if they'd seen this. But what we're doing is celebrating that ramp on the exterior as well. So you can see that ramp inside here and presenting itself on the outside at the top. So this ramp, as it extends around, extends back, it becomes a canopy to the main front door back here. This is a rendition of some trees, maybe a sculpture and some other things out front in this plaza space. So the door itself, even though it is on the back corner, it clearly has a presence to University Avenue. All of this is glass. The staff report mentioned the glass is predominantly at the first floor. That's not true. You can see here the glass, most of this building is glass and transparent. You can see in and engage and have a dynamic building to University. This is looking from campus to the building. So again, here you can see the ramp, in the building and extending through. So there's some dynamic engagement between the building and the street and campus. And then this is a view from those handicap parking stalls to this front door, and how the front door through this sidewalk and plaza connects back to University over here. Just lastly, some pictures of the interior. This is when you walk in the front door and you can start to see the ramp as it extends around the boardroom. It starts to come up along University Avenue here, standing at the top of the landing above the main entrance, looking back toward Olmsted and the main campus there. And then another view looking back toward the library, Cole's Library. Old Main sits back here. And so there's a real dynamic engagement between the building and the street without having a door literally on the front elevation on the sidewalk. And with that, we'll entertain any questions.
Questions?
I have one. Anybody else?
Yeah.
Yes.
Kevin, what's the distance from University to the facade of the building?
The dimension from the sidewalk to the front door?
Sure,
I believe.
Front door, I'm talking about University.
Yeah.
What's the building setback?
Oh, the building setback. We're at the right-of-way line, I believe, or very close to the right-of-way line of the sidewalk is the front of the building. The other issue too is that we're trying to create a safer, more gracious and welcoming environment for those with disabilities. And by providing as much handicap parking as we can on the south side, it's a safer environment. If we're lucky enough to get a handicap stall on the University side, it's kind of a dangerous proposition to be able to get out on that busy street and get to the front door.
Hello, Kevin. Hi. Can you put up your floor plan again? Your first floor plan? why PowerPoint was invented. This is interesting, and so you do have an elevator, right?
Yes, we have a ramp, a stair, and then the elevator is a two-sided elevator, handicap or a hospital-sized elevator. So it's got a door on each end. With the strategy there, is given by our accessibility committee, is that 2 people could wheel on with their wheelchairs, go upstairs and wheel off without having to turn around and manage themselves.
And thank you. Do you mind putting up again the rendering? I'll call it the money shot. The rendering, yeah, that one. What I was sitting here thinking about, and so this might be more of a dialogue than a question, I don't know yet, but you know, the intent, I think, with putting doors on facades on streets is to create activity, you know, to try and not have blank, lifeless sort of elevations, and we all understand that. So this is a super helpful image. I appreciate the image. What I was thinking about when I saw this, it wasn't long ago that I was in New York and went up the Guggenheim for the first time. I'd never been there before. And seen all the pictures, read the books, but you know, when you actually experience the ramp, it's very powerful. And so when I saw this and you put it up, I just kept thinking, wow, what a celebration kind of, you know, of the ramp. I was almost hoping you didn't have an elevator so that everybody had to use the ramp. And, but, so I guess my point in this is I appreciate a couple things you've done here. It absolutely is full of life. And I know you well enough to know that, you know, this glass will be very transparent. And I think that's very powerful. And then that one drawing you had that showed sort of the connection, I'm sure it was very thoughtful for you guys about where the ramp protrudes out at the top, and it's kind of sort of on axis, at least visually on axis, coming down through the campus heading south. I think that's a fantastic sort of celebration. So even though you don't have a front door, I just have to believe everybody going by is going to want to go in. They're going to want to figure out what's going on inside. And that's really awesome. So I think you guys have solved this well.
Thank you.
Kevin, I have one question. On the drawing, it looks like you said currently there's a grade change, but on the elevations that you were showing, it looked like pretty much the whole building is kind of flattening the site between the grade and back. What is the grade difference at the west end of the building from the sidewalk to the entrance on the west side of your building?
Let me get to the site plan, and you can ask that question again.
Yeah. So from University Sidewalk, we're talking about a future bus stop being midpoint of 29th and 28th, somewhere in there. Is there not the ability to make a sidewalk connection from University to that sidewalk on the west side of your building and allow access into that building? Because not every person will drive to the site. There could be a mobility challenged visitor or patron who rides the bus.
Correct.
So could they not have access to the west side of the building to get in? I saw your floor plan. It looked like that was all level at grade and would go back to the ramps in the building?
Yeah, let me describe that. So from here to here rises 5 feet, and it still does, because these grades don't change. So we're rising up. What we're doing here is, you're right, we're carving this down. So this is sloping down sort of in this direction. We're doing all of our stormwater management is sustainably done with green infrastructure practices. So all of the stormwater from the roof and from the parking is all being managed in some bioswales in and around the site. This is one actually here too. This sidewalk then is not a ramp. This side, sorry, can't. So that sidewalk slopes at less than 1 in 20. So it's not even a ramp to get down to that door. So to answer your question, yes, someone might get off a bus here that's in a wheelchair, for example. We don't necessarily want them to come into this door. This door currently, the way we're planning it with Drake University, is that that's a key card access for staff. That's why we weren't bothering to put a sidewalk to University, because staff and visitors are parking back here predominantly. There's actually a handicapped staff person in a wheelchair that's part of their staff that probably can park here and come down here and enter at that point. But if they're already traveling a distance anyway, getting off a bus here, we still want to come over here predominantly for the reason of access and control. They don't have a huge staff, and so there's a visitor or a guest volunteer at the front door to greet that person. If you have two public entrances, it becomes a security issue.
I guess our suggestion was more on line of, I'd be willing to not have a door directly on University. This would be a fairly minor revision, possibly a call button for someone that goes to that door, for someone to come and let them into that door on a shorter path from a bus stop than taking them the entire length of the building and then into the farthest point on the building from the bus stop.
Yeah, this isn't the only bus stop. There's also a bus stop planned here and a bus stop planned here. So there's people coming from all directions, not just one. So folks that are coming to these bus stops, are coming to this door. So to answer your question, one building, and I believe it's also Drake's, it's the legal clinic. I've gone to meetings there before, upstairs in the boardroom, the library. That has exactly what you're talking about. And the issue with that, for a guy like me that is disabled, I can park in the handicap spot by the back door. The back door has a call button like that, but the person, it's not convenient. It's a secondhand door, treats me differently than other people. I got to go around to the front door, which has steps. Then that's the one they want people to go to because that's the front door. And the buzzer system does not work on that particular building. So I don't know that that's necessarily a solution. I appreciate your comment. I appreciate your comment that in the spirit of what we're trying to do, we want to give people universal access everywhere. But that particular door is meant as a secured access for a control.
And please don't take my comments as wanting to treat someone's differently. I have a father who's disabled, and distance is a huge issue. So my question was just, is there the ability to accommodate within your existing design for someone who would ride a bus to this facility? Someone that gets off the next stop could still use that door on the south side, but if somebody gets off at that far west edge of your property, doesn't know that there's not an entrance, they're walking the entire length of the building and back to the furthest point on the building. So those are the questions. Thank you.
Kevin, I have a question as to circulation around the building. When someone is parked in the main parking lot, how do they get to the front door? I'm parked in the middle of that parking lot.
This is an early plan, but they would walk to there's a sidewalk connection here and down.
Okay, thank you. I didn't see
Or
that.
they can come here and down.
Secondly, how wide is the sidewalk? And boy, we're getting into details, but I'm just curious because you are going to have, I think, a lot of people going from University and walking. Are there steps that come up and head toward the main door from University as one walks to the south? On the east side of the building.
East side.
Yes.
This is all flat.
So how do I get to from the main entrance of the building down to University? I think a sidewalk.
There's a sidewalk here, there's also a sidewalk here.
Are there no steps in that walk?
There's no steps.
It's completely flat.
We were grading the whole area.
So I've been somewhat confused about the grade. So you're able to go from University directly to that main entrance?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is a major crosswalk here, and this is a major crosswalk here. But yeah, this we're flattening out so that I can pull in here, and this is all pretty much flat.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Other questions?
I have a comment, please.
Comment?
It was interesting when Greg was talking about the Guggenheim. I think everybody caught that, in mind. But, that's a post-World War II building. And here in Des Moines in the 1920s, there was the same concept that I think it was Proudfoot and Bird when they designed Smouse, what's now Smouse Opportunity School. There's the same kind of a level ramp. For the same reason, I don't know if the slope would conform with current day standards, but Des Moines wasn't without interest in the same thing many years ago.
And as you mentioned that, the Butler Mansion too has a ramp that connects all levels as well.
Well, one last question. I've seen some planning efforts up and down the street for various street trees. And I'm not exactly sure what it all was, and I don't know. Do you know of that, and are you guys coordinating with that any, or is that not going anywhere?
Yeah, so what I can show you just very quickly is this is the streetscape plan that Drake has been working on.
Thank you.
For the area. So here is Harkin. Here's the bus stop. Here are those bus stops, for example. Here's the hotel that Mike Nelson is doing, which we've been working on that as well. And so this shows the plan for that whole area. So there's streetscaping going on. There's medians that are going to be added for slow down traffic and so forth. So Genus Landscape Architects are not only doing all of this, but they've been the landscape architect for this, and so they're coordinating all of that.
So with your project, will you be able to do both the bump outs across the street, or just the one on your side?
Just the one on our side. But Drake is proceeding with the streetscape work fairly soon, I believe. Thanks.
Okay, other questions? All right, thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor of the applicant? Okay, anyone here to speak in opposition of the applicant? Okay, I'll close the public hearing. Discussion?
I'll move staff with the exception that there not be an entrance on University.
Okay.
Second it.
Second? Okay. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Raise your right hand. Okay, opposed? Abstain? Okay, it's passed. Thank you. Thank
I knew
you.
I wore this blue outfit for something today.
Very good. He wore blue for you, Mr. Harkin. Yes. Okay, we'll turn our attention to 11. City initiated request to give a segment of Rollins Street between 41st Street and 42nd Street an honorary name of John Byers Street.
And I think, Tyler, did you pass around those? Tyler's going to pass around some letters that we got as well. So there was a notification area, but in addition to that, we got several letters of comment from people that are outside of the immediate area that I want to make sure the commission gets to see.
Thank you.
Good. There's that one. Strong support.
And I'll try to make this as simple as possible. This was initiated through inquiry by one of our city council people to our street addressing committee to consider a honorary street name for John Byers Street on a segment of Rollins Street north of the Playhouse building and south of the Roosevelt, Shops at Roosevelt development. So segment we're talking about is right here, the one block stretch between 41st and 42nd Street. And the recommendation of that committee was not to name it because the policy set for street naming by the city council included that streets shouldn't be named after people unless it's posthumously. So that's what's in front of you right now is the consideration of an honorary name. It doesn't affect addressing. It doesn't affect, what goes on Google Earth. But it would include signage in addition to the street signage for Rollins Street if it's granted. So that would be the main difference. I don't think anybody on staff is challenging the worthiness of the honorary name or anything like that. So it's simply down to what the addressing committee did in applying the policy of the council. Of course, the city council will take this up for the final decision, and they certainly can waive their own policies. So.
Discussion? Questions?
How long has this policy been in effect?
I don't think it's been that terribly long, because certainly we've, named other streets after people that were in the living. not
Aren't we
that long
also
ago.
living in a building that is named after a gentleman that still lives?
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are.
Okay.
That's a building, though.
Okay, yeah, you're right, you're right.
Robert D. Ray.
Robert D. Ray,
Yes,
yeah, I
yes,
know.
both George Flagg Parkway and Robert D. Ray were named officially, not honorary, officially name changed those streets with names of living individuals.
It just, in my opinion, it seems like if you're trying to honor someone, it'd be nice to honor them while they're alive and they know it. So I wasn't aware of that policy, but. Other questions? Discussion? Is the applicant here?
The applicant is, so again, this is city initiated, so there may be individuals here that want to express their opinion, but this was generated through an inquiry by a council member to our addressing committee, and we're obligated to push it forward, basically.
Okay, thank you. Want to speak in favor of this?
If I can.
Yes, okay, please come up.
Is it the favor for the denial or the favor for the request?
No, for the request.
Okay, thank you.
You're supporting the request.
Okay, good.
Okay, and so David, I know but David and your address, yeah.
Sure. My name is David Kilpatrick, Executive Director of Des Moines Community Playhouse, 831 42nd Street here in Des Moines. And it was just an opportunity that I had presented to one of our board members that said we would like to honor an individual who's contributed so much, not only internally to the theater, not only nationally to the community theater organizations, but also just to Des Moines and the community of Des Moines. And he's retiring after 37 years of service, and we thought we were looking for something special, something unique that not anybody else could enjoy or recognize, and we would like to do it while he was alive. And we were not aware of the posthumous requirement when we made the request. But we just really appreciate the support that Eric's given to us and understanding he has to follow the rules he has to follow, and we appreciate that. But we just humbly request it.
Yeah, good. Questions? Okay, thanks. Thank you, Mr. Anyone else want to speak about this? Okay, I'll close the public hearing.
I move to name this street in memory as we have been asked to do, and to approve it with respect to the honoree.
Okay, very good. It's been moved.
Being the property owner across the street at the shops at Roosevelt, I would love to second this. John Byers has done marvels for the Des Moines Playhouse in that whole area. It's great, great property.
Okay, great. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? Item passed. We're going to adjourn. No. Well, I know, but don't we adjourn and then you have the director's report? Sorry. Okay.
Put a slam this gavel.
I have some
Just
notes.
real quickly, one thing, our next meeting is at 4 o'clock, starts at 4, because we're going to be going over the draft zoning ordinance, public hearing draft of the zoning ordinance. That document,
Send me his calendar invites for that one?
we have not.
Okay.
We discussed it at the last meeting, availability. The next two meetings, we agreed to meet 4 to 6 p.m. to discuss the draft zoning code. That public hearing draft will be released tomorrow at noon on the city's website at plandsm.org. So on the website will be the ordinance itself, the zoning and site planning and design ordinances, which are chapters 134 and 135. Also on there will be a link to an interactive zoning map that, just like the Find My House app on the city's website, you can type in an address and it'll take you to the property on the map, and you can toggle back and forth between the current zoning, proposed zoning. If you click on the parcel, it brings up links to the zoning code itself, or that information where you can get to that district information. And then the schedule, draft schedule that I had shown at the last meeting, which has been updated slightly, is on there as well. So there's a wealth of information that will be on the agenda or on the website at noon tomorrow. We have sent the document to the printer, and I hope to get you a paper copy of the document prior to your workshop, but I didn't have it today. So the release is tomorrow on the document, so we'll get that to you quickly and prior to your workshop on the 6th.
Okay, so I'm going to punish you for making us now get soaked, but more importantly,
Is it raining?
tomorrow it gets released, and I have people call me and they go, well, what does this mean? Is this like done deal, or how can I?
Yeah, absolutely
So how
not.
would you like me to respond? So
Yeah.
what are our talking points?
Yeah, absolutely. This is not the final thing. We have 6 months of public hearings ahead of us on this code. So there are at least 10 public meetings between, public can attend the workshop, they can attend steering committee meetings.
Perfect.
Can come to the planning commission hearings where you actually take public comment. We're gonna have 2 of those. And then there's 4 council meetings.
So if you're going to release that tomorrow, it'd be really great that we had like a sheet that just simply said, yes, neighbors, this is how you can plug in. So even if somebody could just type
Yeah.
up or send me a quick email that says
Yeah,
this,
what
this,
we
this,
have
this.
is, we gave some talking points. We had a meeting with the Des Moines Business Record and the Des Moines Register, and we gave them just some talking points on it. I can forward that out to you tomorrow as well. And really, the reality is, direct people to the plandsm.org website, because that is where all of the information is.
That's all I
at.
need to hear. So just simply, it's just like, give me.
Okay, so the next meeting is June 6th.
June 6th.
Because this is incorrect.
The preliminary agenda does not have it on there, on this, but that's a preliminary agenda.
Right.
We had to finalize and make sure we were going to have the draft
Right, we
released
just wanna
before
make
this
sure you
document
know
went out.
this,
But
yeah.
yeah, 4 o'clock on 6th, 4 o'clock on the 20th. We will be talking about the zoning code, okay? And there is no meeting with the city manager tomorrow. He will be out of the office. Thank you.
So the 6th and the 20th, Michael, we have long meetings.
Potentially, yes.
Let's not say it like that, John.
Are we adjourned?
Now you can.
Hey, you want to hit
Oh,
the thing?
sorry about that.